We are moving to this brigade, and there, in that brigade, there were 5,000 people in the beginning of the Russian offensive, and now, in short, there are about 200 of them left.
This is a fragment of a conversation between a Russian serviceman and his wife intercepted by Ukrainian intelligence. The soldier, who's located near the Kreminna-Luhansk region, is talking about the situation at the front line and no longer hopes to return home.
Briefly, I'll call you in the evening, but then you can look for a new husband in about 2 weeks.
Lyosha, stop saying bullshit.
I'm serious and telling it like it is, Tania.
The number of killed Russian military is increasing every day. In 14.5 months of a full-scale Russian war against Ukraine, the enemy army lost more than 194,000 people. This is reported in the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The loss of equipment and weapons is also massive. Nearly 4,000 tanks alone, more than 7,000 armored combat vehicles, 3,000 artillery systems and over 300 aircraft were destroyed.
As of now, Russia has neither the military nor the economic, nor the political potential to attempt a large-scale offensive anywhere in Ukraine. The truth is that the Russians have reduced their missile stockpile to almost nothing. Kirill Budanov, head of the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with Yahoo News.
The Russians are silent about their losses. Since the beginning of the full-scale war against Ukraine, the Kremlin has only voiced the figures 3 times. The last time was even before the announcement of the so-called partial mobilization. But even then, they were very different from the calculations of the Ukrainian General Staff and the estimates of Western intelligence. Moscow began to hide the death toll from the very first days of its full-scale invasion so as not to demoralize the Russians and not to waste money on payments.
I was struck by the cynicism of the Russians. On the day when we were at the talks in Belarus, we had already counted about 3,000 Russians killed. This includes Hostomel and other cities. Our side offered their delegation to pick up the bodies of the killed Russian soldiers. Then the head of the Russian delegation turns to the Deputy Minister of Defense of Russia, who says that they do not confirm this information. According to them, several dozen people were killed at the time. They cynically concealed losses from their leadership. Alexei Reznikov, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in the special project of Dmytro Komarov, Year Behind the Scenes Minister.
The hottest point of the front line is Bakhmut of the Donetsk region. The White House estimates that in the past 5 months alone, Russia has lost 100,000 people there, killed and wounded. Huge losses affect the federation's economy, primarily the labor market.
Russia is almost certainly facing its worst labor shortage in decades. The Russian Central Bank surveyed 14,000 employers and found that the number of available employees was at its lowest level since 1998. Over the last 3 years, Russia's population has reportedly decreased by 2 million more people than expected due to the impacts of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine. From the Ministry of Defense of the Great Britain on Twitter.
Russia may be preparing for a new wave of mobilization. Military experts came to this conclusion based on the April decisions of the State Duma. The Russian government adopted a number of amendments to the law, introduced electronic summonses and limited the rights and freedoms of draft evaders. The second wave of the so-called partial mobilization is expected by the Russians themselves. According to the Levada Center, more than 2/3 of those polled believe that there will be a new call to the war against Ukraine. Even if the Kremlin decides on such an unpopular decision, then what the recruits will wear, what they will be fed, and what they will shoot with is an open question. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Valeria Nekipelova, UATV News.